we're the very first platform to operationalize the full incident response process. And so when I say operationalize, what I mean is like truly breaking it down into what you need to know with instructions for what to do for every step of that process and for the whole business, not just security.
Assemble the council.
Welcome to episode 17 of the Cybersecurity Council. Today we're talking with the Chief Product Officer at BreachRx. This is Matt Hartley, and he's going to explain an incident response platform, a service you may have never heard of before. Good day and welcome to the Cybersecurity Council podcast. Today our special guest is Matt Hartley. He is a co-founder and chief product officer at BreachRx. BreachRx is an intelligent incident response platform that provides operational resilience for the entire enterprise. It streamlines incident response. We'll be talking about incident response a lot today. This is going to be an exciting conversation. First things first, Matt Hartley. The Cybersecurity Council welcomes you. Please say hello to our audience.
Hey, Scott. Hey, everyone. Great to meet you. Thanks for having me today.
Matt, you've been a thought leader in cybersecurity for a long number of years. Now, the phrase thought leader gets challenged. So I want to take just a moment to make it clear for our audience that you, in fact, have some bona fides here. You have been a guest lecturer or professional speaker in the cybersecurity and cyber warfare space for a long time, and you've been in great demand in that respect. You've covered the bases at the financial services ISAC. You've talked at many places. There's too many to list. You've been a lecturer on cyber warfare, intelligence, security. You've been a lecturer at the National Intelligence University, the Wharton Business School, National Defense University, and the Industrial College of the Armed Forces. I also want to point out you were the Senior Vice President of Research and Engineering at FireEye for a while. Matt Hartley, you build big ideas, you are a thought leader, and that fact is incontrovertible. Now, have I done your introduction justice? Did I miss anything? Did that capture your background? Is there anything you would like to correct or add for the record?
No, Scott, I think that's great. Thank you. Very generous. I'm very fortunate in my career to have a very broad one. You know, having done military service, having spent time in the offensive space, running product at eyesight partners, amongst a lot of other roles, and yeah, running engineering for the Mandiant team while I was at FireEye. So yeah, thank you.
All right, Matt Hartley. Let's talk about incident response, and let's also talk about the leadership necessary to become an award-winning chief product officer. Now, full disclosure, BreachRx is a sponsor of one of our upcoming events. We're looking forward to hosting you on November 8th at the Q2 Stadium in Austin. The Cybersecurity Council is all grown up. We're booking stadiums now, and BreachRx has been a part of that journey, so thank you. We're also looking forward to some of the secrets you may reveal at that conference. I'd like to start with this fact. BreachRx just won a major award. Within the past 24 hours or so of this recording, you just received the 2024 CyNet Innovator Award. I'd like to start right there. Can you tell us about earning and winning that award? Can you tell us what the Innovator Award means and why BreachRx claimed that honor?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, we were really excited to win that. Yeah, I think as you said, it was in the last 24, 48 hours we found out. You know, there's a lot of different awards in our community, but this one's really special. It's an award you have to earn. 230 companies, actually over, as I understand it, applied for the award, and we were one of the companies selected. And it is an award done by the security community. So the CISOs that are out there as part of that community are the ones that helped make that selection. So for us, we are reinventing incident management and incident response in the cybersecurity space. And we love the fact that our team was recognized for this award. The team, obviously it's a team award, it's a team effort. And, we're really, really excited that the market is seeing, the industry is seeing the need here for a new approach to incident response.
Tell us about BreachRx. Give us the Chief Product Officer version.
So yeah, as I said, we are reinventing incident response. And maybe just to take a quick step back, let's think about what incident response has been over the past 20, 30 years. Our companies, our teams, we have an incident response plan. Typically, it's a paper plan. We have thought about incident response. We've thought about what we would need to do. We've hired experts. We hopefully have practiced, tabletop exercises are kind of the norm there. Hopefully at least annually, maybe more. And when something happens, hopefully our technical team has practiced enough that they're able to respond. That's kind of where our innovation has stopped until BreachRx. Now, what has changed, what the industry has recognized is that living in Teams, in Slack, in email, in Google Docs is the past. If we think about security and we think about all the different areas of security, there's so much technology, so much automation, so much innovation that we brought. But in this area, there's nothing. And actually, it's fascinating. If you look, Sunil Yu published a book about the cyber defense matrix. Great read, highly recommend it. But one of the fascinating things when you overlay the 1,000 security companies, technology companies on top of that, there's almost nothing in the respond and resolve columns. And that's because we basically have decided that we're going to just rely on our people and what they know and hope for the best, if we want to think about it in kind of the worst light. So what we're doing at BreachRx is we're bringing consistency to the chaos of an incident. And we've recognized that incident response is a business problem. It isn't just a technology problem. It's not just a security problem. You have security, you have legal, you have IT, you have compliance, you have your leadership, your business leaders. So there's all these different facets in the business that have to be part of an incident. They play crucial roles. But the way that the teams have interoperated in the past is through Zoom. And that just doesn't really cut it anymore.
This may seem like a random quote, but I think it's Mike Tyson that might have said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And incidents can be that punch. So I'm glad you're there helping all of us. If somebody reaches out to you before an incident, before a data breach, they want to be proactive. So they're going to start talking to BreachRx today. What are those conversations like?
Yeah, I think we start with meaningful preparation, and being proactive is the only way to go. We've talked to over 100 law firms that specialize in cybersecurity and incident response. And one of the fascinating things that they've all said is that A, they've never used a company's incident response plan. And B, no company is actually prepared, regardless of how big they are. And when we reflect on that and some of the points I made earlier, it's because we're relying on essentially our teams, our people, to jump in, save the day. I mean, we can think about it almost like heroic firefighting. And that, with the number of breaches that there are these days, even smaller breaches, we just can't rely on that anymore. And so it's all about that preparation, that understanding of the obligations that you have as a business during an incident. So obviously part of your obligations as a security team is to understand the threat, to contain it, to eradicate it, clear out your environment from the adversary. But it's more than that. It's understanding the impact to the data, understanding the impact to your customers. It's legal's understanding of the regulatory requirements, contractual requirements you might have for reporting that particular incident. It's your comms team having to deal with your customers, having to deal with your partners, having to deal with potentially the media. And it's also the business's responsibility to deal with like cyber insurance policies and the requirements that you have for notifying them. So there's all these outsiders now that play a key part in what's typically been kind of an inside process. And that doesn't even mention like outside counsel, forensics firms, and everybody else jumping in to help you with your incident. And so you need a way to quarterback that. You need a way to pull all that together in a way that you can document what you've done. And so that's kind of where we start, is like you have to be proactively prepared if you want a successful response.
You just explained that some of your early adopters have been the law firms and forensic firms that are jumping in and helping once an incident and or breach has been declared. And you mentioned that a lot of them tell you, we're kind of just throwing out the companies that engage us. We're throwing out their incident response plan, and we're right there on the spot giving them something better. And my guess is BreachRx has something even better than the better. Where else are you seeing traction? Who are some of your other... You're past the early adopter stage. So that's the wrong question. But where are you seeing the traction?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has breaches, right? There's 10,000 breaches reported in 2023. You just think about that number for a second, the number per day. I mean, that's a lot. Obviously, the companies that have a lot of consumer data, it's really of critical importance to them because the number of regulations has just exploded to protect that data. So there are over 200 regulations now in over 130 countries all around the world. And so when you think about that new kind of pressure on a business, companies in traditional like retail, technology, really any sector that has a lot of consumer data, that's been one area that's been a big success for us. And another area is highly targeted industries. And obviously there's a lot of those, but if you think about like the financial sector, if you think about like critical infrastructure sectors, there's a number of areas there that also have a lot of incidents. They're not all incidents that necessarily make the news. They may not even be incidents that are reported. But one of the common things that these CISOs have seen is the need for that consistent process that we talked about, being able to ensure that their team doesn't miss steps, ensure that everybody's working together in a common frame of reference. That's been a big driver for them. And then the other big driver for them has been understanding that incident response records now are almost audited in the same way financial records are. And to that point, being able to build up a record of the responses that you've made over a period of time just helps you not only build up a library of reference points for if you have a similar incident in the future, but also builds up proof that you have a process and that you're following it.
You've given us a very good holistic vision of what BreachRx is focused on. I'd like to ask you to go towards the differentiators. Like, what are the 3, 4, 5 things that BreachRx is doing that maybe nobody else is doing or doing as well as you are? Maybe this is a process and procedure question. Another way of asking my question here is, a CISO, how do I sell BreachRx as that one more tool that I want to buy to my board of directors and C-suite?
Yeah, I think a couple things there. So we're the very first platform to operationalize the full incident response process. And so when I say operationalize, what I mean is like truly breaking it down into what you need to know with instructions for what to do for every step of that process and for the whole business, not just security. And so, with that, it's an easy comparison against the technologies that have been out there for a long time that might light up that, you have a particular, regulatory requirement or, ticketing systems and other tools that are commonly used for this where you can kind of build out a workflow, but there's no help, there's no expertise that's baked into that. And so the combination of these things is really just, made us stand apart. And as you mentioned, like we won our Signet Award yesterday or the day before, as a recognition of that. If I was a CISO trying to sell this to the board, it's really about reducing risk and reducing cost and increasing resilience.
Hey everyone, I'm taking a moment to remind us all that on November 8th, we're having our first annual conference at the Q2 Stadium in Austin, Texas. The Cybersecurity Council is a place for big ideas. We need big venues, and we need you to come and show your support to be a part of our community. Also, the Cybersecurity Council offers virtual CISO or fractional CISO services. Give us a call so we can help you.
So the cost of a data breach in the US is almost $10 million per breach. And a lot of people misunderstand this number because they hear breach and they think it's big. Like, oh, that must be like one of those big ones like Equifax that we read about in the news like a while ago. But it's not. That can be as little as 2,100 consumers' records at $10 million. And so just 2,100 people's data can cost you $10 million. Another fun stat that's floated around for a while in the community is, and the number has changed slightly, I don't remember exactly, but somewhere in the order of like 55 to 60% of companies that have a breach have another one within the next 12 months. And so you kind of think about those things and you say like, it's a matter of time until we have some incident that matters, whether it's a breach or not. Why wouldn't we get ahead of this? Why wouldn't we practice like we fight? How do we contain the costs that we're going to have, whether it's those costs that are not just security costs, but legal costs, court case costs, stock price drops, customer churn, presenting it as, hey, this is a business problem. We need a technology to pull all this together. That's how I would kind of approach it to the board. And then, hey, once we get this in place, now we can practice. Now we can do, monthly simulations, monthly tests. We can grab different parts of the business. We can do these things asynchronously. So we don't have to get everybody in a room and practice for hours on end. So those are some of the ways that I would talk about it to the leadership and really help them understand that you're strengthening the entire business's ability to deal with this. And maybe in parallel, you might say like, well, there's other parts of the business that do this too, right? Like just maybe physical security. They have to think about physical disasters and other types of crisis events. And what are the things that they're investing in as a business to make the business more resilient to those types of events? Like if you're a manufacturing company and one of your main plants goes down, what's the business approach to continuing to operate as a business with that plant down? Same thing here. Like we have to be able to be resilient as a business to be able to survive an incident that's meaningful.
Earlier, you were talking about 10,000 breaches per year. You brought up potentially $10 million in breach expenses per breach in certain ways and in certain conditions. Now, we've had a lot of major breaches this year. That's included CrowdStrike, Ticketmaster, Change Healthcare. There's been a Dell, Tencent, Ascension, AT&T. What organizations, what sizes and shapes should work with BreachRx to prepare?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to have a modern incident response plan, or they want to start with the best incident response program, that's where that's what our customers are coming to us with, that desire. Big or small, I mean, we work with everyone. There are obviously different needs for different size companies, but you can have a 200-person public company that has some of the same requirements as a Fortune 10. And so a lot of it just depends on how you look. And then part of it is just how you want to operate. Much like everything in life, like the more you practice, the more you act, the better things will be. Again, like kind of the training, the operational processes, the things that you put into place as a foundation for your business help you grow. And so if you do incident response right at the beginning, that helps you grow, that helps you stay resilient, and just make sure that you're protected and make sure that the team learns how to work together, effectively, basically from the ground up. So we're pretty broad. I mean, everybody needs incident response of some kind. And so, ultimately, that's my answer is like everyone's at a different stage and we have different ways that we can help the biggest companies down to, the smallest mid-sized companies that have a program or they want to make it better or they want to build one from scratch.
Can you talk to me about use cases and some ideal scenarios? The company approaches you. What's their first 10 days like with your platform? How are you collaborating with them to improve their operations?
Yeah, I think a key is really understanding what they want to do or what their ideas are for where they want to go. And then spending the first, few weeks with us. It can be a couple weeks. It can be a few more weeks, depending on the company and what they're trying to accomplish. Taking what they have and reframing it in the context of automation, of our technology platform, the BreachRx platform. The platform is built to be very extensible. So you can adjust and tune and tailor basically every aspect of it. We built it that way from the ground up, knowing that everybody has a different process and a different way of thinking about incidents and incident response and severity levels and types of incidents and just all the different things that kind of surround incident management and incident response. And so when we start with the customer, it's really understanding where they're trying to go and then helping them take what they have and reframing it in the context of, okay, well, now I have technology that can help me with this. One example might be everybody's got their plan. And I would say very few companies have gone to the depth of like, let's take our plan and maybe build some flowcharts or build out some process diagrams or maybe lay out a task list or something like that. Some have, but ultimately it's okay, well, wherever you like, whatever level of that information that you have, let's break that down and let's ensure that you tailor the plans and procedures that come with the platform, but also the plans and procedures you need to add to the platform. And that way, as we start to run practice exercises and things like that in the platform, that they get a good sense for it feeling like their process, it feeling like it's part of their way of operating. And we try to get to that as quickly as we can. There's a lot that a company can learn when you go from, anytime you take a process from something like an open spreadsheet or email in Slack and stuff like that into something that has more structure. there's a learning curve there. But people very quickly recognize the value of a little bit of productivity and a little bit of upfront work pays great dividends later, in the sense of when you need to generate reporting, when you need to look back and see what you've done in previous incidents, or, worst case would be like, oh, regulators knocking on your door and they want to see what you're doing. Being able to look in and see that. But the bar is not high. We had a customer who we onboarded on a Friday, and as most security professionals know, Friday's a day that we get a lot of attacks, and they had something meaningful happen. And so they were able to use our platform completely untailored and successfully respond. So that's a win for us. And part of how we've approached building BreachRx is recognizing that because this is a business problem, it's not just a technical security professional sitting in front of our platform. We have APIs, we have high tech kind of views and deep ways that you can operate as a technology operator, but we have legal people in the platform, and a lot of times those folks aren't as technically savvy. We have communications people, business operators, like all kinds of other folks in the platform that aren't used to sitting in front of something like Splunk. And so you have to build a platform for incident response that's able to kind of move across, from a user experience standpoint, all these different users. And that was a really key insight for us that has stayed a key focus for us on the product side, is how do we ensure that it's powerful, but it's also usable. And so that's why a customer can come in and use it on day one without doing any of that tailoring. They can just kind of jump right in. It feels natural to them.
Security takes a village, and it's ready for them. That's excellent. As a chief product officer, how are you making sure that BreachRx is ready for the regulatory landscape being so dynamic? Changes are coming, more changes are going to come later. How is your product staying on top of all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a core value proposition for the company. We help our customers stay on top of the regulatory environment. We're constantly working to, using automation and using, our expertise to help ensure that customers have the very latest when it comes to the regulatory guidance that's out there, as I mentioned, across the world. And we even have a product that is separate from our platform that are integrated as well, that lays out all of those regulatory requirements in a very simple way. And we call that Cyber Reg Scout. So that product we're keeping up to date constantly, so that a legal professional, compliance professional, or security professional that maybe wants to understand a little bit about regulations, or maybe have a more cogent conversation with their legal team, can go in and just understand in a really simple way the requirements. And so, that's a key piece of what our customers use as well to stay on top of what's going on and what's required of them. And that's a huge leap for a lot of legal teams, because most legal teams, when something happens, they're sort of stuck looking at a spreadsheet that they got from a law firm, or Googling to find the law, and then they're going to go read the law. And if you have a big enough incident, that's a lot of laws to read. And so, and kind of double check and make sure you're not missing any of the points, and you're looking at it in complex governmental kind of regulatory language. And so, from that standpoint, that's just always been a very key focus of BreachRx. My co-founder, Andy, is a lawyer, in fact, and he's been in the cybersecurity and privacy legal space for 20 years, and even trying cases in front of the FTC. And so, I think the two of us coming together, we kind of had this unique vision. That's part of his remit, his part of the vision is, how do we help the legal professional? How do we help the compliance professional stay on top of these regulations?
Does the platform help prevent people from making mistakes that could put them into further legal jeopardy? I'll give you one example. Within, I believe, the last 12 months, there was a company that was fined, or at least has proceedings against them, because some of their senior executives were using WhatsApp to communicate with each other instead of using the prescribed incident management channels that the organization should have been using. So again, the question is, does your tool help keep people out of further trouble?
I mean, we do our best. Obviously, it's up to every company and how they want to operate. So much has changed in the last 5 years when it comes to incident response. Used to be, you could stand up a Slack channel or a Teams channel. You could throw your lawyer in the channel, put a banner on the channel, and you're good to go. Or, sending emails back and forth and having just CC your lawyer. Okay, we're good to go. We're safe. And that's really changed quite a bit. we've seen in a number of court cases now, the judge essentially ruling that, okay, well, you're using Teams for your incident response, use Teams for all the business kind of routine business operations that you have. So why is this different? It isn't. Because of the way that you're treating it like it's routine. And so, yeah, that channel, you have to give over to the prosecution, like all its contents. And that's even gone to the point now where we're starting to see more of, oh yeah, and by the way, like the whole team server, like every channel in the team server. So you think about just, it's like the kind of conversations that in our businesses that we have across our, Slack or Teams channels, like not everyone's having a great day. People get frustrated. Somebody might say something that you don't want in court. The disgruntled loan guy that says like, oh, we're not security first because we don't patch fast enough. Like that's the stuff that ends up in front and center in a court case. And after, any kind of significant breach these days, you get multiple lawsuits, from your shareholders, if you're public, from the consumers themselves, sometimes from the state attorney generals, they'll all kind of team up. And so ultimately we do a lot around legal privilege and protecting legal privilege. A, we're purpose built for incident response. B, we're separate from your environment. And then C, we're, able to bifurcate your capturing of the things that you have to capture for that record, like the decisions that you're making, the actions that you're taking. We separate that from the conversations. We actually offer a means in our platform for companies to communicate with each other within a team or within their teams live in our platform. And so by separating those two things and some other, taking some other actions, you basically, we're kind of stacking all the chips in your corner that you'll be able to, in front of a judge, say, well, here's why this is privileged. It's always up to the judge. Like it's kind of you never know what's going to happen. But if you can stack as many things as possible in your favor, then it's most likely that you'll be able to make that kind of argument. And so that definitely has been a very big focus of ours.
I can see and feel Andy Lunsford's impressions upon how you think and how you are describing things. It is always good to have a co-founder that's got a legal background.
Definitely.
You've had a career which is very focused on stakeholder engagement. You've done the professional speaking, you've done the guest lecturing, you've done the research and engineering leadership. As Chief Product Officer here at BreachRx, how are you listening to your customers? How are you incorporating their feedback? How are you adapting your roadmaps? How are you adjusting your product?
Yeah, I feel like one of my special skills is listening. And, I'm fortunate that that's the case. It's definitely something that's in part imbued, but part learned over my career. And so that's key. The key is really listening and understanding what your customers, what, your friends, what your partners, your advisors, like what everyone's telling you that they need. And they don't always even know what they need. I'm not a big like Steve Jobs, build it, they don't know what they really need kind of proponent, but there's an element of truth at least to that. If you listen to enough conversations, enough asks, enough pain points, things start to come out from that. Just even going back to the earliest in my career, like in the Air Force, in understanding, frustrations with how computers were operating. My very first job, supporting an Air Force agency with just kind of straight IT stuff and, understanding the frustrations of the user base, understanding the frustrations of the folks that work for me that were running the team, running the system, running the networks, being able to just distill that down and take action. And so that's sort of kind of been pervasive in my career every step of the way. And so, working with at Eyesight and really hearing what people were saying about the amazing intelligence that we were creating, but the struggle that they had for a while to really operationalize it, how to really use the intelligence and being able to understand how to take what we had and make it easy for them to instill it into their security processes. And, similarly at FireEye, the role I had was internal all the way out to customers. Like, how do we understand how to help our consultants, our Intel analysts, how to help them operate more efficiently, all the way out to like, how do we help our customers? And, there it's especially in an engineering role, it's a lot of partnering up. It's listening to your customer success reps. It's joining conversations that they're having. It's listening to your salespeople and taking part in their conversations. And and just kind of put yourself out there. And there's an institute for product management that's called Pragmatic Institute. And one of the things that they have is an acronym that I can't honestly remember all the letters, but the key to it is you have to get out of your office and you have to hear what people are saying in order to create something that's actually useful for people. And so that's what we do at BreachRx. So, it's taking part in sales conversations, it's taking part in customer calls and running exercises for our customers. It's sort of spanning the gamut of all the different roles we have in the company. That gives you this opportunity to just absorb information and then constantly reading the news, reading industry news, seeing LinkedIn posts and what people are talking about, and just trying to distill all these different inputs down into a series of directions. You asked about our roadmap, and for us, one of the key things is like customer asks are always important. So we always have these strategic goals, but what are the things that we can do to help our customers get efficient now? And so that's a big driver for us. That's a big priority for us. And so we constantly are shifting things around to ensure that customers are getting what they need in terms of the efficiencies. Even if that costs us a month on some strategic roadmap item, we'll do that. And so that's kind of how we manage all of that. And in product, that's how I've kind of approached building out our platform.
It's a good design philosophy. It's an even better design philosophy when you already have a product that satisfies. Would you be willing to share more about some of the table types and exercises that you help your clients with?
Yeah, I think we always talk to our customers about what are they, where are they at in their kind of maturity life cycle when it comes to incident response? What are the things that they've done in the past? And as I mentioned earlier, it spans a gamut. It can be a smaller company that's just getting started. It can be a really big company that has a pretty sophisticated program. I would say one of the areas that tends to be least sophisticated is just practice. And partly it's because practice takes time. And we have run into some programs where they're doing a lot of practice, and that's amazing. But the place where we tend to start is, all right, well, let's get the core elements of your incident response in a room and let's run a scenario that's pertinent to you. And core elements in the room, in most cases, we got security. If it's a product company, maybe you've got engineering, if not IT. And then let's get legal in the room. Let's maybe get a comms person in the room. And, maybe you start there and let's run an exercise just for an hour and keep it simple, like something so easy, like a customer success person lost their laptop and there's a whole bunch of customer data on it. What do we do? And kind of play that out. But we kind of graduate them from that sort of scenario up to, hey, let's get all the stakeholders in a room that really matter, and let's kind of ramp up the sophistication of the scenario. And so from there, we really understand the customer, spend a little bit of time understanding their environment, their infrastructure, their business processes, and we just construct a scenario that's a little bit choose your own adventure. And we kind of play it out. We at BreachRx play a bunch of different roles as part of the exercise, and just let the teams do what they do, or see, kind of go through the motions of how they would approach a particular problem. It's fascinating to watch the evolution from before, when they really aren't used to or don't have our platform, to when they do, and especially when we get up to the level where it's the C-suite as part of the exercise. And one of the key insights for us has been, especially earlier in that maturity, as I mentioned at the beginning, like security teams, IT teams, technologists in general, we all want to jump in and help. Your grandma, your grandpa calls you and they want to have, they need help with their computer. Like, you're jumping in. You're like, how can I help you? Like, tell me what's going on. Like, install TeamViewer, I'm going to look at it, or whatever. That's how most teams operate in businesses with big incidents. And what that means, though, is as they go through, they're literally trying to remember, in a lot of cases, what they need to do, and they forget stuff. Every exercise, someone's forgotten something, and, to different degrees. But, that was very eye-opening for us to see, and sort of reinforced the need for our platform. And so seeing the maturity change, but also seeing the business leaders get in, is really satisfying, because a lot of the business leaders haven't been exposed to a lot of real scenarios. And a lot of times it's like, this is the best exercise I've ever been in, like, kind of blows their mind to really understand the full picture of the problem. Because so many tabletop exercises are like, oh, there's a ransomware event, everything's broken. And there's a lot of hand waving, and you spend an hour in a room and then everybody leaves, like, did we pay or not? But if you actually go deeper than that, if you actually unpack how they operate and you start picking away, like a bad guy would, at the way that they operate, Ramp up the pressure over a period of time rather than just start with like everything's down. That's what's realistic. And so bringing some of that realism and exposing some of the rest of the business to that has been really, really satisfying and really beneficial for our customers to see that. And that just sort of cements the value of our platform because it's telling them, here are the steps you need to take given what you know. And, the teams can go and execute that and, ensure that they don't miss those steps and ensure that they have the best response possible. And then adjust our platform for what the, findings are from the exercise. The boss says he's never going to pay. Okay, well, now we know that. Let's change the way that we operate when we plan to operate when ransomware hits or whatever. So that's, I think exercises has been a fun opportunity for us to really make concrete the value of the platform, but at the same time, really educate a lot of people about what adversaries can really do, during an attack.
I believe in tabletops and exercises. I'm also military. I've done so many exercises in my career of different calibers and scales. I've seen the challenges and the culture revealed just like you are describing. I've also done exercises while wearing my CISO hat. So I've even gotten closer to a lot of what you are describing. That's the rubber meets the road area. That's where I believe that process makes you more agile, not less. If you're following the platform, if you're following the prescripted guidance, you are going to arrive at your destination. So I'm buying everything that you're selling here. I like it. And I want other people to benefit from what you are describing. So they should definitely be checking out BreachRx. Now, once again, you're going to be one of our sponsors at our upcoming event. Big ideas require big venues, so we're at the Q2 Stadium. Now, I have heard that BreachRx will be bringing a team that might be presenting some deposition guidance or giving some other types of lessons learned about data breaches. Can you give us a teaser? Can you tell us what we might be able to expect on November 8th?
Yeah. Without spoiling anything, what I can say is we've talked to a lot of CISOs, obviously, over the past couple of years, and there's a lot they don't know about the legal side of things. That could be just because, obviously a CISO is so focused on so many different things, like that's another bucket you just don't have time for. Could be the differing levels of relationships we see between CISOs and their legal team. Could be a lot of different things, but what we have seen is just a hunger to really understand what to expect, whether it's from law enforcement, from your insurer, from a regulator. And one of the examples that has come up is, what's it like to be in a courtroom and be called to the stand, or to be deposed for a court case about actions that you took for, in this case, an incident. And so, so we'll have a team there, and we'll have Andy play the legal side, and we'll have one of our teammates, Dan, come in, and a former CISO for 10 years. He'll come in and play the part of a CISO being deposed. And the audience will be able to see and participate in the deposition, to see the results of the deposition in a couple of different lights. And we're hoping that just informs everyone, makes everybody feel a little bit more ready in case it happens to them, and educate them on what to expect, and then expose them to some best practices to make sure that you don't follow your natural instinct when you get in a situation like that and just, almost like spill the beans. Like you just, a lot of people, they get into a seat and they start getting questions asked, and they start answering the questions, they start anticipating the questions and answering the questions before they're asked. And that's one of the situations where that's not a good instinct. And so, we're really excited. We're really happy to sponsor and very excited to join. And we're hopeful that everybody will enjoy it.
I know I will. I'm already looking forward to it just based on what you've laid out for us right there. Co-founding a company. Take me back to where you made the leap of faith. Where did the ideas come from? Where did the original partnerships with Andy and others come from? How did you know and feel that this is the moment and I am ready to put on the Chief Product Officer hat?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So while I was at FireEye, I had been there a while. I was running a fairly big team, and I was starting to think about like what areas for innovation are there. And obviously, in a bigger company, sometimes it's really a challenge to do something really new, especially a public company like FireEye was. And we were obviously innovating quite a bit in a lot of different areas. One of the things that sort of caught my attention was this idea, if we go back to maybe the 70s or the 80s, the idea and the focus that we used to have on information security. People are maybe sometimes familiar with, or at least us old timers are like familiar with the Rainbow series that came out from the government back then, which was a series of guidance on, in part, protecting information and data. Well, somewhere along the way, as computers got smaller and, we bought them for our home use and everything else, we kind of lost sight of the information for the technology itself. And so security, the industry, our industry, really evolved toward how do we protect the systems? How do we protect the networks? And there was a little bit less of a focus on the data itself. And we had encryption, and so we were good. Or at least that's what we believed, right? And so while I was there, I started seeing, at FireEye, I started seeing these regulations start to come up and a little bit more of a focus from security academics, security researchers on information security, and they were calling it privacy, data privacy. And so it was one of the few areas that I saw that there was something new, something potentially new here. And then obviously being at FireEye, being around the Mandiant folks, seeing the pain that companies were facing with incidents and understanding the limitations that most every company had when it came to an incident for what they could do. And so the combination of those two, as I began to think about this, I was very fortunate through a mutual friend who was a coworker to meet Andy. And Andy, obviously coming from the legal side, he had the idea that regulations were going to change this space. And so we had some kind of adjacent overlap to our idea here that regulations combined with breaches were going to force companies to change the way that they dealt with incidents. It wasn't going to be what the lawyer used to say. They join the Zoom and say, like, no one write anything down. You can't do that anymore. And so that's where we started. And took the leap right in the middle of the pandemic in June of 2020. Although I've been talking to Andy for a bit there, and just jumped in, started really building out what we launched to market in 2021, and we pressed the gas from there.
Pressing the gas. What have been some of the milestones or accomplishments that reinforced your thinking or let you know, hey, this is working. BreachRx is happening. We're headed towards success.
Yeah, I would say obviously our early customers saw the need for operationalizing the process, for pulling the team together. That was a huge win. Obviously, every one of your first 10 customers is like, yes, somebody gets what we're trying to do. We're not crazy. So after that, we started focusing a little bit on security compliance. We got our SOC 2 Type 2 very early because we knew we needed to show that to our customers. And going through that process sort of enlightened us to the pain that people face across not just, externally audited frameworks, but internally, aligned frameworks like NIST CSF. We're just starting to spend some focus on that in our platform and workflows around that in our platform. That really helps security professionals understand a bit deeper what we were trying to do, because the default again is like, oh, I know all the answers. Like, I don't need a platform for this, but showing them what they were responsible to be ready for, I think that was a big milestone for us. And then, moving forward from there, our first Fortune 500 customer was amazing. Things like the SEC guidance coming out, seeing NIS2 in Europe, CERCIA that's coming down the pipeline here in the US. Just the regulators are just piling on the pain, and companies are, CISOs are, maybe frantic is too strong a word, but there's a lot of angst in our CISO communities about a lot of this pressure, this kind of outside in look that they're not necessarily used to this degree. And so for us, that's driven a lot of interest in what we're building, and then helps CISOs think about, how can I do things different? How can I do things better? Like, I've never had a chance to have technology in this area. So what can I do with that? And so just from there, it's just nowadays, as I said, it's been really just satisfying to have someone just grab the platform and be able to use a lot of it just right off the shelf to do exactly what they need to do. And then just those little incremental improvements we're making, along with some of the roadmap, strategic improvements we're making, just getting them excited, every time we chat with them. That's sort of been the great day-to-day lately.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm reflecting on my own experiences as a CISO as you're talking. If an incident occurred, I immediately had so many different things to juggle. Contracts, with our clients, and third parties would demand you need to notify us within this period of time. You need to tell us before you talk to law enforcement, whereas another contract might say something totally different. Our cyber insurer is also in the game. They will say you can disclose X, Y, and Z. You can use service 1, 2, and 3 to do forensics or investigations. You cannot do these other things. So you got to fold that into your plan. And everything that I am describing is not something you want to be exploring and defining in the heat of the moment. You're going to want something like BreachRx's platform to help you outline all of these things, put it into a list, and that way, when you sit down to describe the incident with your C-suite, you can tell them, this is going to happen, then this, we need to make these decisions, we need to get to these inflection points. I would be one of your first 10 customers. I realize it's not 2021 anymore, but I understand what you're doing and I see the absolute value. Who have been some of the members of BreachRx and the team and its growth that you've just been so proud joined BreachRx?
Yeah, I would say so. Our CRO, Andrew Elliott, has been amazing. I've learned a lot from a lot of different folks that I've worked with over the years in my career. I'm just like extremely fortunate to have so many opportunities to work with such amazing people, and I've learned so much from Andrew about understanding how to help customers, how to understand what customers are looking for and what they need. So just super happy he's been like integral to our growth at BreachRx. And, I couldn't say enough about Andy. We talked about him already. I would say, another early team member, Dan Fry, who joined, former CISO, former CIO. He had his own startup for a while, just someone who's been in technology for 30 years and super passionate about it. Just roll your sleeves up and get stuff done. Like that's how he thinks, that's how he operates. And he's also been really crucial to our ability to succeed. So a lot of folks we could talk for another hour just about all the people that have been part of the team and their successes. But as I said at the beginning, we won the award. We won the Signet Award because of the team executing, the team putting everything in and building out this platform and helping customers really achieve what they're trying to achieve. And so I'm just really proud to be a part of the team.
Being a co-founder is always a very willful choice. And I want to point out to our audience that you did not arrive there and make the decision to be a co-founder uninformed. You'd been working with cybersecurity venture capital. You'd been mentoring. You'd been parts of some cyber accelerator programs. And my question is, what lessons from that work did you pull into your own personal repertoire as you were helping BreachRx find its way?
Yeah, I would say being a mentor, being exposed to VCs. I mean, you hear the stories about grit and determination and you see some of it, but even then you don't really feel it until you do it. And so I'd say part of being exposed was just kind of preparing for the level of effort that it was going to take to accomplish something. Given my career, I'm very, very fortunate. It's been very broad. A lot of people be in the same career path for 20, 25 years doing product or doing engineering or whatever. And I've bounced around. I've done, business development, sales, marketing, to a lesser degree, marketing. I've done, services quite a bit. I've done partnerships. So having this background in product and engineering and everything else, sort of was thinking like, well, I could do this. Like I can jump in, and just seeing examples of people that did that leap and used the skills that they had to be successful, kind of emboldened me to make that leap as well. And I was fortunate at Eyesight to come in like relatively early and go through kind of the later stages all the way through to our exit to, FireEye acquiring Eyesight, and being a part of that as well was really eye-opening. And so, for me, just being around the community has been very educational and kind of preparing me. And then just having this broad set of skills is something I was telling a friend the other night is you don't really recognize when you found a company, the degree to which you're going to use every skill that you've ever learned before, and you're going to stretch those skills. You're going to grow new skills. And I would say I kind of anticipated that, but I didn't anticipate to the degree that is reality. So, I'll add to that to your question is like getting exposure and helping others helping others understand how to see the market, or helping others, mentoring people about how to understand how to do product management, things like that, how to understand what your customers are saying, or how to talk about what you're trying to accomplish to a customer or a potential customer. Those are the things that I've helped others with that have helped me see and reinforce the skills that I have to see what I would need to do to make BreachRx successful.
Matt Hartley, Chief Product Officer at BreachRx, recent winner of the SciNet 16 Innovator Award. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for talking with the Cybersecurity Council. We're looking forward to hearing from your team, maybe with some deposition guidance on November 8th. It's been brilliant talking to you. I am going to have fun in post-production making this episode sing, because all of the meat and potatoes are already there. So thank you. I'm wishing you a pleasant day, and the Cybersecurity Council is here to help you with anything you need.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate being here, and thanks, everyone. We look forward to seeing you on November 8th.
Welcome to the Cybersecurity Council. This council strives to showcase unique cybersecurity leadership stories. Its mission is to demystify and simplify cybersecurity across the entire business landscape. Best practices, lessons learned, operational recommendations, it's all here. Brought to you by the Cybersecurity Council, LLC, Brian Green and myself, Scott Brammer, will be your hosts. We have come in from the cyber wilderness, not just to share what we have learned, but to find and elevate some of the most important voices in cyber. Brian is a former Division I college football player who has experience across many cybersecurity software startups. He has a successful exit on his resume too. He's also the founder and president of this very community, the Cybersecurity Council. Myself, Scott Brammer, I'm a former Marine and active CISO, and I have 3 patents in cyber and risk. As hosts, we are here to elevate best practices and strengthen the cyber community, both for the community itself and its allies. The Cybersecurity Council has had auspicious beginnings here in the Austin, Texas community, but we are already going worldwide. Everyone should be a cyber practitioner. The views expressed on this podcast, either by us or by our guests, are our own, and they do not necessarily reflect the view of our organizations. This podcast is intended as a forum for professional knowledge, but it is not legal or regulatory advice. Always consult your legal professionals for legal and regulatory matters. And now,
assemble the council.